I've been watching some of the coverage on MSNBC. Of the slaughter of innocent people, young people, who are out for a good time in a country western bar. I just, like I said last hour, it's hard for me to even talk about this stuff because I know that it's not going to stop. It's just not going to stop. And like I mentioned earlier, every time I send Molly off to school in the morning, there's a question in the back of my mind. What will you do, Mike, if she's killed in a mass shooting? And I watch some of the reaction, some of the parents who now have to deal with this, whether they were at the high school or a yoga place or a church. It just, I couldn't deal with it. I don't know how these parents are going to deal with any of this. How did this happen? Well, I know how it happened. Because of the cowardly son of a bitches in the U.S. House and Senate, Democrat and Republican. All of these fuckers, every 535, one of them. Oh, I know there's some people who've been advocating for gun control. Okay, I'll give you an exemption. But the rest of the people in the U.S. Congress who have flat refused, they put fucking money for their re-election campaigns ahead of the lives of young people and people in a synagogue and people in a church and people in a fucking grocery store and people in a restaurant and a yoga center. Jesus Christ, you filthy members of Congress. And you fuckers still won't do anything, will you? It gets down to a question, Kathy. Do we put Molly's life at risk every day, or do we get the fuck out of this country? You can say anything you want.
Yeah, well, you and I were talking about this yesterday when we got an email. You and I both got a text alert. I think I got an email and a text alert because I've signed up for everything with Molly's school, that there was an evacuation. And that's the first thing you see. You just see evacuation. You don't see why, because the subject line or the text matter just says evacuation. And my heart sank into the pit of my stomach, and I thought I was going to vomit. I mean, it was just one of those, feels like I just got punched in the gut and the wind knocked out of me. And I didn't realize, I guess, how traumatized I'd been by all this news until I opened it up, and then it was a fire. And I was like, oh, and you think, thank God it's a fire. I mean,
and a fire caused by some nutcase at the school who put a bunch of shit together, lit it, and threw it into a waste basket.
Threw some crap in a trash can in a boys' room. A teenager doing a stupid thing. All right, so that's great. We didn't know that at the time. I mean, it didn't even say that in the first email. It just said there's a fire, and we believe in safety, and there's been an evacuation. And then you and I talked about it later, the irony of how, wow, I'm relieved it was a fire. Oh, I have a feeling of relief that my kid's school was on fire. Right. We didn't know how bad it was. We didn't know, but what the whole building was burning down.
Right.
Until later we found out some kid with
You're absolutely right. It's and I shouldn't condemn all 535 members of Congress. I certainly retract. Well, you can't retract. I apologize for that statement. Because there have been some senators and representatives who have tried mightily to get legislation passed to stop the carnage. I don't know that there is any legislation that at this point would stop the carnage. How do you stop, of a population of 340 million people, of which probably 30% are fucking nuts, That's 100 million people. How do you stop every individual who decides, well, I think I'll go kill 15 people today? But it's not all 535 members of Congress. It's the ones who continue to take money from the NRA, you dirty sons of bitches. And I will guarantee you that every one of them is a Christian. Every one of them. Hi, Truth Seekers. Mike Malloy here. As you know, we've switched formats and are now broadcast exclusively on the Progressive Voices Network. So that means you get fewer program interruptions, no corporate commercials, and lots of profanity. But our format change also means some of our radio listeners no longer hear the program. It's been a while since I mentioned our podcasts, so you may have forgotten that there is a way to listen to this program anytime you need a good dose of screaming. Visit MikeMalloy.com and subscribe to our podcast. You have your choice. You can listen to the ranting with the audio podcast or listen and watch me lose control with a video podcast subscription. As a podcast subscriber, you can download the program to your mobile device and take me with you wherever you go. And if you have a friend who needs a dose of truth-seeking, you can give a gift subscription as well. That's MikeMalloy.com, and never miss a minute of the uncensored fun and frivolity.